This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 900, recorded on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. 900 weeks of science. 9999, number 9. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we are going to fill your heads with base, fertilizer, and the alphabet. And the number 9. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Global warming is coming. Despite what you have read, despite everything you have heard, despite everything you know to be true, regardless of your better judgment and your amygdala's common sense application of fight or flight, do not panic. Seem to be increasing. The responses to those threats underwhelming. The proposals by world governments undeliverable. The urgency in public conversation absent, and the predicted outcomes prophetically grimmer by the day. But whatever you do not panic. Sure, the moment to stop it completely is past. Sure, there's a level of sea level rise now unavoidable. And sure, the short-sightedness of past inactions has decidedly put us up a creek and downwind of a pig farm, all without a paddle. But do not panic. Because where there are problems, there are solutions. And we will absolutely can and will science our way out of this. As long as you maybe just panic a little bit, then slap yourself in the face a few times, pour cold water over your head because for some reason, then say, I got this, roll up your sleeves, and listen to the 900th episode of This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. And it's not just another episode, It is our 900th episode. This is 900.
Wait a second. 900 episodes of a weekly show. That means we've been doing this for a while.
900 weeks, give or take. A little bit more,
gosh.
which is, over 17 years of science in podcast form.
Our podcast is old enough to drive. It's almost old enough to vote.
Almost old enough to vote and go to war for the country. That's right. I mean, if we look at it really going back, then we can go back. And it's probably old enough to drink, which I'm doing right now, raising a glass to you all who are here joining us tonight, to my wonderful co-hosts, Blair and Justin, for being a part of the show. Thank you. Because honestly, you, our audience, my co-hosts, but really the audience here, our community, without you, there would be no reason to record. There would be no reason to be live. And so this is for you. We can't do this without you.
Being live.
Yeah, I mean, we still might have a phone call and talk about science and, debate and have some fun, but
Not this early.
no.
At 4 a.m.
I certainly wouldn't do as much research, so.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and we're glad that you are here, whether this is your first episode with us or your 900th. We are just happy that you're here with us, and we hope that you enjoy the show. All right. So what do we have on the show for us tonight? We have so many wonderful stories. As usual, it's going to be a great show. I have stories that are hopefully optimistic. And, we're going to talk about fertilizer because fertilizer is important. We're going to talk a little bit about the cosmic spin cycle and how we're taking a look at that. I've got some vaccine news because, COVID, it's not really over. It's not over.
What?
And then at the end of the show, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell you all to get some sleep. So I'm just telling you now what I'm going to tell you later, which is at the end of the show, I'm going to say, go to bed. And then we're all going to go to bed.
Oh.
Even you, Justin, even though you just got up. But anyway, Justin, what did you bring for the show?
Oh, I've got bad news about Greenland, people. I got good news about plants. Oh, it's Ötzi the Iceman, who used to listen to the show 5,300 years ago. Update, he's got an update. And then some ancient words of wisdom, maybe, inscribed upon a comb. An ancient Canaanite.
Blair. Blair.
I forgot I was doing science. I got so wrapped up in this right here. Yes. So I have pigs, I have looky-loo fishes, and a late-breaking story about octopuses. And I also wanted to drop that bass, as Kiki previously discussed.
It's all about that bass,
No,
it is, but it's not. It's not. It's all about us right now because we're doing this show here, and we are so excited that you're here with us, like I said already. But if at any point you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not subscribed to TWIS, you can find us all places podcasts are found. Look for This Week in Science. You can also find us places like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, because that's where we live stream every week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, unless, of course, Justin's internet is being a problem like it was tonight. And we are also TWIS Science on Twitter and Instagram. And you can just find us at twis.org if all of this is too much information for your brain. Just remember that one thing. That one thing. That's what's important. But right now, it's time to jump into the science. I'm going to start the show off with something that's coming up that is, wherever you are. Justin's already at November 10th. We are just about at the cusp of November 10th here. November 10th, celebrated every year, is the World Science Day for Peace and Development. And it's meant from UNESCO's International Days to highlight the important role of science in society. And I thought, what better opportunity for us at TWIS to just kind of wax poetic about our 900th episode for just a moment about the importance and relevance of science in our daily lives. So this year's Science Day for Peace and Development is aimed at sustainable basic sciences. 2022 actually is the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. And you can use hashtag Science Day all over social media to be a part of World Science Day conversations around the globe. And so this year is focused more so on basic science, which means that research which has been done for years and years and years, not necessarily knowing that it's going to have a payoff, right? It's the stuff that is the basis for things that we take for granted today. Polymerase chain reaction. Yes, while we might all kind of look askance at the Nobel Prize winner who came up with PCR these days for some of his more interesting ideas on science and health, he did come up, Dr. Carrie Mullis came up with an amazing reaction which is used today in laboratories around the world. We used it during the COVID-19 pandemic to help, and it is still used to test and find viral fragments that are identified from the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So basic science led to PCR, led to our ability to be able to use this in some of our public health initiatives today. We also have developments in nuclear science. We have developments in material sciences, chemistry, biology, all of the things. Claire, is science ever not a part of your life?
No. I'm always thinking about it. It's probably annoying to people around me, but that's the beauty, right? Is science fundamentally is about figuring out how the world works and how things respond when you manipulate them, right? It's all about the manipulation of variables and cause and effect, and it impacts everything that we do. And it has the more informed you are about the way the world works, then the better the world can be. I think even with basic things, just like when we report on stories about how societies respond to one another and the intricacies that exist there, that can help inform us and help us be better.
Yeah.
It's, there's really never been a downside to scientific knowledge that I can think of. Maybe the atom bomb, but I feel like there were things related to that were also important to the betterment of society. So it's,
right.
It's really, you got to tease away at that ball of Christmas lights, that is our existence.
Justin, how has science been a part of your life?
Well, I think that the highest and best achievement of science thus far is still the dishwasher. I mean, you think of the number of marriages, relationships in general that the dishwasher has saved. Talk about bettering human existence on the planet. That's got to be at the top of it. And then there's certainly the long list of diseases that science has overcome.
Mm-hmm. I don't get leeches when I go to the doctor to fix things.
I mean, you could, because they do still use them.
Antibiotics alone is used.
Yeah.
The things, everything to do with agriculture.
Yes.
If we were basing the current human population today on agriculture from just 100 years ago, there would be mass starvation and famine.
Yeah.
The advances. You take a simple thing, freezing food.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to freeze, to have refrigerators in your home, but also to refrigerate food when it is in transport. The whole entire system of transporting food around the world. Like all of these things that didn't exist, that now do exist, absolutely have positive impact.
Germ theory, like learning how to get sick from things and how sickness spread. Pretty important. Pretty gosh darn important.
And one of in terms of recent outcomes of scientific efforts, so respiratory diseases had been thought to be spread by fomites, which are the spittle basically that lands on stuff. And then you get on your hands and you wipe your nose. And so that does happen in part, but people had completely underestimated the influence of viral aerosols, of these viral particles that remain suspended in the air for hours, days after people are in a room. And it was the COVID-19 pandemic that really pushed advancement forward in this area. Prior to the pandemic, the World Health Organization did not accept viral aerosols as a method of transmission. It now does for respiratory diseases. So this is progress. And so as much as we had to hurt, science helps bring us along. It advances so many aspects of our lives. And one aspect of UNESCO's World Science Day is a reiteration of the importance of science to everybody's lives and to the future of humanity and the universal human right. It is listed as a universal human right, access to science. That means access to scientific information, access to scientific innovations, access to scientific careers. Science is for everyone, and it is accepted as a universal human right. And so, I don't know, I'm just thinking about this day as it comes forward. And our 900th episode. I'm just very, very proud to be part of and have been part of sharing science with people, even science they don't sometimes like to hear. So anyway, let's move on from this fomentation. What am I thinking? I'm not fomenting anything. No, Justin, what's happening? Something bad, right? This is not just good news, is it?
No, this is just bad news. The science news segment that's not afraid to tell you what's really happening in the world today.
Well,
researchers from Dartmouth, UC Irvine, and DTU in Denmark have made a horrifying discovery. And they published this in the journal Nature. The loss of ice from Greenland's largest frozen basin is occurring much faster than expected, and could contribute up to 6 times more to the global sea level rise by the year 2100 than climate models are currently projecting. That would be somewhere in the neighborhood of half an inch or more of water to sea levels by the end of this century. So, I've been to the northernmost northwestern town in Greenland. Lovely place. Northeastern Greenland, where this research took place, not so lovely. It's a really difficult environment to monitor ice melt or anything else. Researchers used satellite data and numerical modeling with GPS data collected from the harsh interior of Greenland over the past decade. They found 4 extensive speed up and thinnings triggered, they found extensive speed up and thinning triggered by a dramatic warm ocean current event that took place in 2012, which has since propagated some 200 to 300 kilometers inland along the northeast Greenland ice stream. So for those not familiar with kilometers, 200 to 300 kilometers is about approximately equivalent to 200 to 300,000 meters. So that's a lot of meters inland. Despite being an exceptionally cold place and having exceptionally cold 2020, 2021 years, northeastern Greenland is an Arctic desert where precipitation is as low as 25 millimeters or about an inch per year in places. So the ice sheet, as it is bloating, as it's melting, as this cascade effect of collapse is taking place, is not regenerating. It does not have any sort of an offset of additional ice and snow falling. Precipitation. So this is according to Shafkat Abbas Khan, professor at DTU. We can see that the entire basin is thinning and the surface speed is accelerating. Every year, the glaciers we've studied have retreated farther inland, and we predict that this will continue over the coming decades and centuries. Under present-day climate, it is difficult to conceive how this retreat could stop. Our data shows us that what we see happening at the front reaches far back into the heart of the ice sheet. Co-author Eric Renaud, professor of Earth Systems and Science at UC Irvine, said that the more precise observations of the change in ice velocity are included in models. Estimates of global sea level rise projected by the UN's, the IPCC's estimations need to be corrected upwards, which, regardless of what glacier, Antarctic, where you're looking, that seems to be what everyone has told us. What all the models have told us is that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change really needs to get corrected upwards. And Renaud will finish this by saying, we foresee profound changes in global sea levels, more than currently projected by existing models.
Yeah, so all of those models that we go to online that are like, imagine where you live 50 years from now with global climate change and sea level rise. They're wrong. You would be much more underwater. But this is part, again, this is this is part of the process. And this is, while it's unfortunate, this is part of the scientific process of putting greater resolution into the data so that we understand what we're up against better. So it sounds...
you're trying to prevent more carbon dioxide, or you're trying to prevent more climate change. You're trying to curb what's happening. But we are at the point now where things are going to happen. There's no stopping the happening, no matter how good a job we do. And so the second part of it is preparing for that. And so, yes, there is, it's unfortunately a really difficult balance of trying to not create just the worst panic where people are just like, just paralyzed. You don't want that. But you definitely want your realistic model so that you can save lives. That's the other piece that I feel like keeps getting missed here is this feels to many people on the planet very far away, this particular area that is losing ice, but it impacts the whole world.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a tropical storm. It's about to hit Florida.
No, and take out the SLS.
It's November.
It's still hurricane season.
No.
It is, technically.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I think it's past.
No,
I don't think this has happened in the last
season.
Once in 50 years.
What is that, Justin? Season?
Quote unquote.
What word are you saying?
Gary in the chat room says, unfortunately, too many people are just counting on science to save us from global warming. I would say that, unfortunately, too many people aren't counting on science to save us and aren't investing in it. Like, there's a lot of talk about potential solutions.
Yeah.
There's not the funding that the one source for those solutions is ultimately going to come from, which is science. It's the only thing that will save us from ourselves again.
Well, and the problem is you can't just throw money at carbon capture and call it a day, which is kind of why I brought up what I did before is like you can't just focus on, oh, well, if we pay enough money to plant more trees, it'll all just go away. Like, no. That's right. That's over. We're past that point.
Justin reported on we can't plant enough trees to actually make up for it.
And I did report on that, but I'm going to take it back. We could. Plant all the trees. I did the math. It's in the neighborhood of 2 trillion trees. You know, let's put $2 a tree at it, money wise. So somebody says, you tell me if you give me $4 trillion tomorrow, or the day after, it's fine. I can wait.
See you on Mars. Got it.
I can. Then you have engineers who will figure out how to design a massive growing and planting apparatus. We'll have greenhouses popping up all over the planet. We'll have every plant botanist, plant biologist, plant breeder, plant geneticist designing the right trees. We'll have every microbiologist making sure the soil is the proper soil to encourage that. And in
if only
50 years...
That's the problem, though. Who's going to die in those 50 years, Justin?
Who's going to die in the next 50 years? But if only trees weren't made of weed, right? I mean, that would be, then everybody would be into it. They'd be all wanting to make money.
Actually, that grows faster.
Yeah, smoke it if you got it. Anyway, I mean...
Might even be.
Yeah, everyone
stumbled upon an even better idea than trees.
But in the big picture of where we are, we can't just focus on science alone. We can't just focus on corporations alone. We can't just focus on individuals. It's your fault. You need to change your personal habits.
Unplug your computer.
No. We need to be active and we need to be pressuring our politicians. We need to be pushing for regulations. We need to be pushing for subsidies, because without the money, I mean, yes, investors, if you've got the money to invest, you divest from the bad things, reinvest in the good things, and then we'll see things happen. So if you want to see a good world coming, you have to put your money where your desires are. And we have to put
to your point.
And our vote.
Yes.
That is it. And we just passed election day in the United States, and I am pleased to say that it didn't go as badly as I was thinking it might, but
it would be nice if there was control of both kind of different spots of Congress that could actually work on this. But
but this is where science and politics and people really do overlap. Is our future, and you wanted to say something, Justin? Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, while I disagree with the effectiveness of the messaging of throwing soup at masterpieces of art, I love it. I absolutely love what they were saying. Here's a 100-year-old painting that we value so highly that we conserve it, even protect it with glass. The painting wasn't hurt. When we display it and say, this belongs in a museum so the public can experience this because we have conserved and cherished this important thing throughout time.
Yeah.
The point of, compare that to a future that we aren't conserving. Yep. We compare this, like the actual concept, I think, was really powerful and really a strong statement. We will do so much to conserve the past. Why would we not do so for the future? I don't think the messaging was lost. People were like, hey, they threw soup on a painting. That's terrible.
Because it was oil-based paint. That's what I read.
Yeah, but it's also this glass. There's a plexiglass thing in front of the painting, so the painting wasn't hurt. The frame was, but that's a part of the story. But the other thing is, I love the target. Because of all of the artists you could have chosen, maybe you could have gotten away with a Warhol or Jackson Pollock a little bit, maybe, depending. But Van Gogh was an artist who was not afraid of a public spectacle
or soup,
self-harm, even.
Mutilate,
self-harm that showed his passion for a subject. And so, of all of the artists you could have chosen, that was the right one. In fact, if he had been here, I think he would have not only destroyed the painting, but maybe he lost another ear.
Well, we will never know that particular thing.
In terms of messaging to the public, I don't know who gets reached by that message and who really follows it.
And who really got the message as it was intended.
Because the news
you got it.
Oh, they threw soup on it.
But now that you've explained it, people who hadn't heard of it, maybe in our audience, now they understand it better. So I hope this helps everybody's water cooler conversation a little bit more. I mean, especially now that are we all going to Mastodon? I don't know. I can't even talk about social media and Mastodon because that's like, it makes Mastodon, mastitis, it's boobies. I don't know what's going on. Blair, tell us about our ears.
I'm so confused. We're gonna write it's extinct species? Yeah. I'm confused. Anyway.
Hang on a second. Is that a new social media thing that people are supposed to go to leave Twitter? And then you're going to...
That's where all the academics went.
The academics...
Not just your hashtag rooms, but everybody's going to be siloed completely in different social media?
It'll blow over. Just let it... Okay. Anyway.
Just let it go. Stay on Twitter. It's fine. We're still there. But Blair...
Pay attention to... Don't take your eye off the target. Pay attention to climate change. Don't pay attention to the blue check mark. Anyway. Are we going to the club after this or what?
It's our 900th episode. I think we got a party afterwards. Boom,
even though we're in three
anywhere that there's bass. Anyway,
when you go to the club, the club as I call it, and you we call it the club. Anyway,
going clubbing.
When you're really
this is the thing. You've actually used this in a sentence.
When you're really, you're vibing, man, in the club. Anyway, when you're really feeling it, you're really dancing it out. So I just wanted to know why. What about that music really gotcha? And it is that bass, but it's more complicated than that. Some researchers recruited participants attending a live lab concert for electronic music duo And the
What?
And the concert goers were equipped with motion sensing headbands to monitor their dance moves. They weren't just checking how good they were at dancing. Actually, they were checking how hard they were dancing, how hard they were enjoying that bass. Anyway, they were also asked to fill out survey forms before and after the event. And that was made to make sure that the sound that they were changing underneath the music was undetectable to human ears. They also measured concert enjoyment, and they examined how the music felt physically all through this survey. But then the headbands were looking at their heart rate. And
what
so
what did the Club nerds report?
Yes, so what they were doing, I didn't even get to the actual variable they were manipulating here yet. There was a 45-minute concert by Orfsks, and the researchers manipulated the very low bass playing speakers. They turned them on and off every 2 minutes. So it wasn't the individual song, it was a regular interval, and they found that the amount of movement was 12% greater when these speakers were on, that were introducing levels of bass that were too low to hear. So this super low bass sound was causing people to dance more intensely.
They were clurbing harder.
Clurb extreme, you know? Anyway, they speculate that these physical processes, the low, undetectable bass was creating a neurological connection between music and movement just based on this undetectable bass sound that was undetectable to our ears, but obviously detectable to our brains. And the neurological connection was picking up on low frequencies and could affect the perception of groove. So
I love that groove is now a scientific term.
Yeah.
It's like, how much did the music make you want to move? Well, that's the groove.
That's
man.
The groove, baby.
So,
oh, jeez.
So this is absolutely the technology that needs to get deployed in offices around the country. Just come in and just start putting on your subhuman hearing range bass, and just watch and see if any of your coworkers start just like.
Oh, guaranteed! I'd start dancing in my seat. I dance during the day all the time in my office. Anyway,
can I tell a story about Marshall right now?
Yes, please.
Yes. So apparently, when Marshall and I first started dating, he would go into work and we would go to the club over the weekend in San Francisco. And then he'd go into work on Monday, and he'd go in and put his headphones on. And apparently he would sit at his desk listening to dance music, house music, trance music, all the things. And one day his office mate threw down her mouse and her pens, and she said, "Would you stop it?" And he took his headphones off and he said, "What? Stop what?" That doof, 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 doof. You're saying it continually. So apparently he was working at his computer, listening to music with his headphones in and just going, doof, 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 doof.
Oh, hilarious.
Absolutely ruining his coworker's day. But anyway, we digress.
They didn't even need these speakers. They just needed to bring Marshall into the club.
True.
Doof, doof, doof.
Anyway, yes, there you go. So there's different people have different vestibular sensitivity to this bass. And so they next they want to look at the brain mechanisms involved to figure out how the low frequencies impact vestibular, tactile, and auditory pathways. But I just think it's hilarious that musicians could be adding low-level bass to their music that is imperceptible to the human ear, but could impact our desire to dance. And is that cheating? Is my question.
Right? Suddenly
and
the
does it matter
DJs...
if I'm having fun?
It's not a good DJ. It's just good, very low frequencies. Yeah, and as David is saying in our YouTube chat, infrasound can have physiological effects. Yes. And so we know that there are different frequencies of sound that are outside the range of human hearing. And they actually, yes, can have physiological effects. If you have higher frequency sounds, those are the ones that are being used by the military and the police as crowd deterrents. They can be highly tuned and create a lot of feelings of pain. However, these very low frequency sounds apparently have different impacts. They make you want to move in a different way.
This legitimately feels like magic to me. That you could imperceptibly impact people's desire to dance. This sounds like a magic spell.
I will put you under my control now.
Yeah.
At the
like bard
club.
magic. It's very good.
Blair, you and the clurbing. I'm never going to get that out of my head.
Yeah. Can you tell? I go to the club all the time.
Go to the club.
I go all the time.
Oh.
Loving the bass.
And this band, I had taken a moment to give a listen to the band Orphx, Orphx. And this band is very industrial, experimental noise. So if you were there for a house music concert and you ended up in the industrial concert, then maybe the very low frequency sounds did help people dance. But if you're into industrial stuff, give Orphx a listen. They were involved in science. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where this was. But it was
Canada, I think.
Yeah, it was at McMaster University,
Canada,
which is in Canada. Go ahead.
If you've been clurbing long enough,
Orphx is Canadian.
You may have lost a significant portion of your hearing,
but you can still feel it.
That too.
But if
you can still feel it,
but you can still feel it if it's got that.
It's all about that bass.
Subliminal
about that bass. No trouble.
Well, because Daniel Cameron, the first author on this paper, is a drummer.
Oh,
so I was wondering about that too, because first of all, definitely has hearing loss if you're a drummer. For sure.
I've never met a drummer who you didn't have to talk loud to and have them staring at your lips while you talked for them to get it wrong. Like it's really bad. Like, if you're gonna play drums. To the kids out there, if you're going to play drums and you want to do that, that's great. You've got to wear the earplugs. You have to.
That's true for brass. I have my hearing's ruined.
And if you're going to the clubs, it's Friday night. I'm going to the clubs. I'm going to put my earplugs in my ears to protect my hearing for my future self because I love my hearing and I want to get old and still be able to hear. Yeah, okay. That's not good rapping, and, I don't want it to be
I didn't even know it was... I thought you were just saying...
No, I very much wish I could go to 15-year-old me and just shove, earplugs into my hands.
Shake her.
You put them in the wrong place. That would have been also part of the problem.
My tinnitus is just so crazy these days. But geez, what would happen if instead of giving everyone earplugs, it were a field of plants and we just sprayed it with fertilizer? That was I don't
plants
know
of dance.
It's the plant club.
Fertilizer.
Yeah, putting a fertilizer in the flurb, as some people call the field. Maybe.
Can you tell me about the fertilizer?
Okay, I gotta tell you about the fertilizer now. So researchers were like, hey, all these people in agriculture are taking fertilizers and pesticides and they're just spraying them all over fields. And, pesticides, I don't want little insects to come around, but, there are pollinators and others who are attracted to these plants potentially, especially if they flower. And so the researchers, based on earlier evidence, they know that bees can detect electric fields of flowers and are attracted to the ion field, basically this electric charge, the electric field that is found around flowers. And so these researchers publishing in the journal PNAS flowers, they specifically, PNAS nexus, not flowers, they specifically sprayed fertilizer on flowers. They created artificial flowers with charges. They tested the impact of adjusting the electrical field of these plants to the insect behavior. And they found that bees are less attracted to flowers after they have been sprayed with fertilizer. And the reasoning that they've come to understand is that the fertilizer triggers a physiological response in the plant. The plant then sends molecules to different places within itself, which leads to a change in the ions that are being released in the and the balance of ions at different places. This changes the electric field, and bees don't like it. And so they don't go to the flowers for a period of time afterwards. Things like rain. They also wanted to check and see, because they know rainstorms can also impact fields, and they found that rain also does impact the ion fields, but rain doesn't impact the behavior of the bees as much as the chemical sprays that we're putting onto our agricultural products. So,
man, that's one of those times you think you're helping the plant and you're actually hurting it.
Right. Yeah, especially with fertilizer. With pesticide, it's very selfish. It's like, oh, we want the plant to grow more and not be eaten by insects. And so you'd think, okay, having insects not coming to the plants is fine. But with fertilizer, right? And so it's just I think the interesting aspect of it also is this is something that we hadn't thought about before, this interaction of the bees with the electrical properties of the plants that they're interacting with. How many other things are we affecting the way that that insects, pollinators, birds, other animals that have different sensory systems that they rely on interact with things that are important to us? And I was thinking about your bee study from last week, Blair.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the
balls.
Bees. Yeah.
The playing bees. What if those balls just had an electric charge?
Oh.
That was something that they are naturally stimulated by or interested in.
That is fascinating. That's a really interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's
mm-hmm.
You gotta. This is one of those things where now you gotta go back in time. You gotta redo every bee study you've ever done. Yeah. This is like when we found out about how mice don't like it when it's cold in a lab, and you're like, well, you gotta redo every single mouse study you've ever done. You gotta turn up the heat and start over. This is the same. You have to look at the electromagnetic field. You gotta do electromagnetic chess here with the bees, and look at that for everything. That could be how they're doing everything.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, electric fields, bees, flowers, pollinating. Who knew? And our fertilizers, and they affect the way that the insects interact for a short period of time. What you got, Justin?
I got some more plant study news. Scientists, this is good news. I've got good news. Scientists from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, have genetically modified a plant protein that is responsible for oil accumulation in plant seeds and edible nuts. They got lab-friendly Arabidopsis plant seeds to accumulate 15 to 18% more oil when it was grown with the modified protein under laboratory conditions. Most oil-producing crops, things like palm, soybean, sunflower, rapeseed, peanut, that sort of thing, already have such a high percentage of oil in their fruit or seeds that it is hard to increase their oil content through traditional crop crossbreeding methods. Vegetable oils are so commonly used in food processing and biofuels, in soaps and perfumes, that the global market for vegetable oil is estimated to be worth around $241 billion US dollars a year, and it's expected to only increase. So even a modest increase in yield from oil from plants, yield of oil from plants, could be massively economically beneficial, as well as potentially more sustainable. So we could produce more oil on the same amount of land, or we could reduce the amount of land that we're currently using and keep plant oil production the same, or the more likely scenario is we'd still use more land and get more oil out of it. But either way, it's a pretty significant advance. Published in the scientific journal Science Advances, the team detailed the molecular structure of a key protein and how it binds to plant DNA, which then signals the plant how much oil accumulation it needs in its seeds. The team modified the gene to enhance the protein's affinity for DNA. The modified versions increased DNA binding tenfold, leading to that 15 to 18% more oil content in the seeds of Arabidopsis. My first reaction, though, was that this is Arabidopsis, which is a very small plant that's very popular in labs. It's probably the best studied plant on the planet.
Yep.
Arabidopsis seeds are extremely fine. They almost look like dust. So when you plant them, it's just I have no idea if that was dust or if that was seeds that went to the dirt because they're so super tiny. So yay, increased oil content of an incredibly small seed that probably didn't have a whole lot of oil content to begin. But they show that the protein target, the DNA strands to which it binds, are extensively conserved throughout plants. Which means this could be not only a common binding mechanism across many plant species, but this could also trigger the same effect. Currently, vegetable oil provides approximately a fourth of dietary calories in developed countries. So we were talking before about science feeding the world and how if it wasn't for science and agriculture working together, we wouldn't have as many humans on the planet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if this does translate to increases, it's yet another way science will have helped feed more humans than ever have lived at one time upon the earth. I think we will hopefully increasingly need, and it's something that we will hopefully be able to do with increasing sustainability going forward.
Yeah, and if we can use the same amount of farmland to be able to raise the plants that will be able to sustain nutritionally increasing numbers of people.
Or less, because we need to make
less farmland.
Forests.
Right.
We need to make room for all the forests that we're going to use to offset the carbon, which is, what was it last week? Half of the world's current cropland needs to be turned into forest. So yeah, we really gotta really make sure we're getting the most out of those sunflower plants.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, my last story for this first part of the show is making the most of the ice on the planet, the ice cube array experiment in Antarctica, where they have a square kilometer of neutrino detectors detecting neutrinos. We've talked about them on occasion for the past several years. Well, a couple of years ago, they were like, we have detected neutrinos and we have like 2.5 sigma reliability. Our significance is enough to suggest that maybe, just maybe, Messier 77, a spiral galaxy similar to our own Milky Way galaxy that has a black hole. It's a pretty big, supermassive black hole at its center. It's also known as, Larry, you're going to love this one, the Squid Galaxy.
Ooh. How come?
Yes. Because I guess it looks kind of like a squid.
Show me that squid.
I don't know why they call it. If somebody knows why they call it the Squid Galaxy, that would be fantastic. I don't actually know why they call it. It looks like a spiral galaxy, so I'm guessing it has something to do with the arms of the galaxy. However, it is very far away. It's part of the set of what were thought to be star clusters and galaxies that were named many decades ago. And initially, the ice cube experiment was like, hey, look, our neutrinos that we're detecting, I think that we can detect them to this galaxy cluster, NGC 1068. Anyway, they thought it was this one galaxy cluster, and they're like, yeah, maybe it's the Messier galaxy right nearby it in there. And then they're like, I don't know, we only have 2.5 sigma. And then now they're like, we have 79 neutrinos. And because of our only 79 neutrino observations they were able to pinpoint as coming from this area of space, they've been able to get almost to a 5 sigma. Still under 5, but almost to a 5 sigma significance that it is coming from this area of space. That means that these neutrinos could be coming from somewhere behind the Messier system. But at this point in time, it's most likely that they are coming from around there. This is 1 in 100,000 observation significance. And the interesting thing about this, this story and why neutrinos are fascinating is that neutrinos are these very energetic particles that don't really interact with anything. We didn't used to think they had any mass. Now we know they have a little tiny bit of mass, but they're still very weakly interacting with stuff. And so they can go all through space. High energy cosmic particles. Bloopsh. And they, there's a neutrino probably going through you right now, not interacting with you at all. And so when we do actually detect them with our detectors, which have to be in the ground and hidden away, and we have to do lots of work to try and shield them, because we create neutrinos from our nuclear reactions. The Earth itself creates neutrinos. The sun creates neutrinos. Our nuclear reactors on the planet create neutrinos. But the idea of what in the universe could create really, really, really high energy cosmic particles. What could be doing it? The neutrinos, being able to actually detect them, and then pinpoint where they're coming from is really important to us, because if a neutrino doesn't really interact with anything as it's making its way through, that means it wasn't bothered by other stuff on its way to us. So it's like it's like somebody really had a free shot into, that crumpled up paper into the garbage bin. And so we can potentially, looking at Messier, it starts to get at the idea that maybe these supermassive black holes are the big, powerful accelerators that spin things up in the universe and throw out these highly energetic particles and cosmic rays. Until we figure that out, it's just a hypothesis. You're like, I don't know. Yeah. So that's why it's important to dig tubes in Antarctica and create these neutrino detectors. We want to learn more about the universe.
Mm-hmm. And a quick Google,
is.
I was not able to figure out why it's called the Squid Galaxy. So, hey, listeners, please tell me at Blair's Menagerie at TWIS Science. Please tell us.
Why is Messier 77 called the Squid Galaxy? Why? Probably because it looks like a squid. I have no idea.
Does it?
Do we look like squids? We don't know. You got to let us know how we look to you. How do we sound to you? Do we sound like squids? I don't know about that either. But this is This Week in Science. We're talking about science, and we're bringing it to you every single week. If you're enjoying the show, please share it with your friends today, because that would just be fabulous and very helpful. All right, let's come back with just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of COVID news. But it's not really COVID news. It's more COVID vaccine news.
Oh, yay.
Yay. Yes. We want people to get the COVID vaccines because that helps to save lives. It's very important. All right. Speaking of saving lives, a new paper out, and this isn't totally new news. It's a new analysis. Researchers have published their analysis of mathematical models incorporating data from 152 countries, suggesting that if the richer countries had been more sharing with their vaccines instead of hoarding vaccines, that there would have been
bad.
As many as 3.8 million lives saved around the world. We could have helped save lives, but instead we prioritized just our own countries. And, there are lots of considerations, and I do understand that, but there is an organization that has been working to develop equality when it comes to vaccine availability called COVAX, and it's a global vaccine sharing campaign, and they were trying to get us and other rich countries to share. They said, hey, could increase or decrease COVID deaths in low-income countries by about 45% if we had just tried to go for 20% vaccine coverage around the globe by the end of 2021, instead of hoarding and just saying, all for us. But yes. Anyway.
I think what's frustrating about that is that we immediately didn't learn our lesson and did that again with monkeypox and let a bunch of smallpox vaccines go literally to waste and threw it away instead of sending it to the areas where it was spreading. And I think that's the other part of this is it's not just about saving lives, it's about preventing global spread too. Yeah. So
that's
by sending it to areas where it could be needed, you can actually save lives in the country that you're currently in with those vaccines by doing that. So it's about, thinking ahead.
Thinking ahead.
A couple steps forward instead of just
sharing is caring, everyone. I don't know. I think I learned that in preschool. For those of you who are getting your vaccines and are worried about the possibility of myocarditis or pericarditis, researchers have been trying to figure out the risks associated with the mRNA vaccines related to myocarditis and pericarditis.
And remind me what those are. What's myocarditis and pericarditis?
It's heart problems.
Okay, it's heart. Yeah, heart. So it's myocarditis is inflammation of the muscle of the heart itself, and pericarditis is the inflammation of the pericardium or the sac that encloses the heart. Both of these can lead to negative outcomes, but more often than not, the inflammation goes away and people recover very, very easily. These are not common incidences, but they do happen. It is, I just want to say, the risk of myocarditis and pericarditis just from getting COVID-19 is about 450 per million.
Okay.
So 450 I just want you to keep that in mind as I report the numbers for Moderna and the Pfizer mRNA vaccines, which they have now discovered that the Moderna vaccine has a higher risk of leading to these inflammation states as opposed to Pfizer. Moderna's rates of myocarditis were about 35.6 per million second doses, 22.9 per million doses for the pericarditis, Pfizer 12.6 for myocarditis, and 9.4 per million for pericarditis. I just want you to remember what the risk just from COVID all by itself was. So this does also 450 per million.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Additionally, the data trended stronger for men in younger age groups. So younger age groups being 18 to 39 years of age. So if you are in a particular health state where you might be concerned about, oh, okay, I'm going to get vaccinated, but which one is going to be better for me? If you have a concern of myo or pericarditis, Pfizer will probably be better. But overall, for the majority of the population, getting vaccinated is better than getting COVID. So, just wanted to make sure that was clearly stated out here so that we can all share this information so that when the misinformation on social media happens, you can go, no, I know, I read this, I heard this. I know.
And don't forget your flu shot.
And don't forget your flu shot. Yes. And eventually, it is going to turn into, I think I saw a headline in the Atlantic, eventually we are all going to not really worry about how many COVID shots we've had because they're going to be annual and you're going to get your COVID shot and your flu shot. And that's just going to be the way it is. And we're getting there.
Mix it up. It's a big bet.
Wash your hands, wear your masks, be as safe as you can in public indoor spaces moving forward because, the trifecta of diseases. You're going to, everybody with kids, they're bringing it home. We're all sick one week after another. Oh, seriously.
Get some sleep, take some Ötzi, eat healthy.
Man, what I wouldn't give to be single and go into the clubs again.
You could not pay me to go to a club right now. Full of disease. Hot, sweaty. Also, I go to bed at 9.
It's the daytime clubs for Blair. Well, at least you're getting your sleep. That's what's good for you. This is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. If you are enjoying the show, remember, this is 900 episodes. Oh my goodness, we made it this far. Wow. Can we do more? Well, we can't do more without you. We need you. You are the big part of the equation. TWIS plus you equals us having good science fun all the time. So if you really enjoy TWIS, head over to twis.org and click on the Patreon link because Patreon is how we really support ourselves through the show. And if you click on that link, you can choose your level of support, $10 and more per month. We will thank you by name at the end of the show. And Dave Gillespie is letting us know right now, Novavax, which is the low-cost open source vaccine that is available. It's a standard vaccine and has a very low myocarditis risk. So there's more out there. But right now, it's This Week in Science. So let's do some more sciencing. It's time for that wonderful part of the show that's full of invertebrates and strange happenings. It's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
Day clubbing with Blair.
On Blair's Animal Corner.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Do you like bacon?
Oh, yes.
No.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
No.
Yes.
Next time you're eating bacon, take a look at that piece. Think about if that pig ever resolved a social conflict in its life. Because chances are it did.
Eat bacon.
You're eating conflict resolution bacon. Congratulations.
Didn't even know I had that in me.
In a very small study, asterisk, of 104 domestic pigs, bystanders would come in to a conflict between two pigs and try to just kind of smooth things over. So normally, in social animals, there's a couple different types of conflict resolution between the two parties involved, the aggressor and the victim. One is reconciliation, where the aggressor actually will kind of reapproach the individual that they were mean to, and they'll try to kind of smooth things over. But the other kind actually is when a third party comes in and tries to kind of initiate
de-escalation.
Peacemaking. Yes, exactly.
A de-escalator.
So that's known as triadic contacts. And so within these pigs, these 104 pigs, they saw all sorts of examples of reconciliation, and they measured them against their genetic relationship. And that was by, the way that they looked, how big they were, how old they were. But then they also did some genetic testing on 31 of those pigs to verify their assumptions, and they were right. And so they were able to kind of see from June to November of 2018, they could see aggressive behaviors like head knocking, pushing, biting, lifting of victim pigs. And then they'd watch the behavior for 3 minutes afterwards to note what kind of happened afterwards. And the aggressor would sometimes initiate reconciliation. Sometimes also the victim would initiate reconciliation. That could be nose-to-nose contact, sitting in physical contact with one another, like sitting nearby, kind of just touching, like, hey, we okay? And then another one, resting their head on the other one. They found that the reconciliations were significantly higher in more distantly related pigs compared to closely related pigs. That might be because they value relationships differently based on what they can provide, whether they are related or not. But what was really interesting about this study was that distantly related pigs were more likely to engage in reconciliation after fighting to ensure they had social support. But this was really most common when this bystander would come in. So this third pig would show up, would walk up, go, hey, break it up. No. So they're fighting. This third pig comes up and engages with either the victim or the aggressor. When they engage with the victim, the number of aggressive behaviors didn't change, but the anxiety-related behaviors of the victim were lowered. So basically, they like gave the victim a pep talk, and they were like, "It's chill, man. Just let him do his thing. He's crazy. Just let him be crazy. You're all good, right?" And so their anxiety was lowered. They were reassured by this third pig. But if the bystander pig approached the aggressor, the number of aggressive behavior attacks towards the victim was reduced. So in that case, they're going up, they're going, hey, buddy, chill out, man. You don't need to attack him. He wasn't trying to start anything. Just be chill. Just be chill, man. It's all good, right? So these bystanders have different... So not only do aggressors and victims have different ways of de-escalating when it's just the two of them, but the bystander has different tactics depending on if they are trying to initiate this de-escalation with the victim or with the aggressor. So the study wanted to look specifically at kind of the genetic relationships and how they value different relationships, and how closely related versus not closely related kin could help with social support and all these sorts of things, which I think is very interesting. But I think what the social interactions here are actually way more interesting to me. Just the fact that this third pig has any investment or interest in what two pigs are doing. Yeah. And I think that is really the meat of this conversation, is that these bystander pigs are inserting themselves into aggressive relationships. There's got to be an inherent risk there. So for some reason, they're sticking their snout in where it doesn't necessarily belong to calm down one of these two individuals. So how do they pick that individual? And that's part of what this study was trying to figure out, but I think didn't come up with anything substantial yet, just essentially more questions. But also, yeah, why? What is their skin in the game that they want to reduce these aggressive interactions in their social structure? So I don't have answers. I only have questions at this point.
They do have some pig skin in the game, though, for sure.
Yes. It was only one group of adult domestic pigs, so it's not necessarily representative of pigs in general, or mammals in general, or social animals in general, or anything like that. But I do think this is a really interesting starting point to I was just thinking about like the dog park. Like sometimes two dogs will kind of start getting into it a little bit. Sometimes other dogs will come in and join in on the fight. Sometimes other dogs will come in and kind of try to distract one of the dogs. It's very strange. And what is impacting that behavior? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to get yourself in where those sharp teeth are? Which I have been bitten by a pig. Their teeth are sharp. So,
of course you have.
That's the thing. So yeah,
I think the other interesting aspect of this is that they do have impacts, that the input of these pigs coming in from the outside are helping. Like they are changing how the social situation turns out, which I think is fascinating. But right. How are they related?
Though.
What is the motivation? Is it like, hey, don't mess with my friend? Is it, hey, I'm gonna help beat up, or like whatever it is?
So I think I'm like I'm trying to picture. There's one very clear memory I have of witnessing conflict resolution of this nature by a third party in the animal kingdom. And I had a mule. I had a mule named Misty when I was 7 years old.
Cute.
And we also had these 7 half-broken, nearly wild stallions that were collected from the Bureau of Land Management. 6 or 7 of them. And they would end up at some point at the fence of the neighboring ranch, and their horses would be there, and they'd be like braying and displaying and like kind of like arguing back and forth. And then here would come Misty, who didn't hang out with the horses much, would come in braying, run down the center of the fence line, right? And both herds of the horses would just take off in different directions. And I remember thinking that my mule was just really annoyed by that. And that's what got her to do that behavior. Was she's so annoyed with those dumb horses arguing over the fence all day that she would just break it up.
Break it up here, everybody.
Yeah, I think that'd be something really interesting to look at too. To that point, Justin, is
that could add stress, right? If you're
cortisol levels, right?
Yeah.
Like if you check cortisol levels, if you break up these fights, do cortisol levels dip? And if you prevent the pigs from breaking up fights, does cortisol go up as there are more and more fights, or the fights are longer, or any number of things? So that's really interesting.
More. Yeah. I'm not. We've all heard how smart pigs are. That some people have pigs as pets, and pigs are, their intelligence is well known, and they do live in groups. Domestic pigs have to live in very, very, very large social groups very often. So the idea that they may have developed at some point in evolutionary history, even before we threw them into very, very large mega farms.
Yeah. This is only 104. This is not quite mega, but
mega,
but definitely there are other ones. And then is the same happening with cows, with bees, with dogs, with monkeys? Like what's happening with conflict resolution?
That's the thing. It's like with cows, I go, I don't know. I don't look at the intelligence of cows as highly as the intelligence of pigs.
Right.
But I've only recently started to really look at the intelligence of bees as being so incredible. So there's potentially a lot of misunderstanding on humanity's part.
And cows are extremely social. Like you don't think about it when you see them hanging out in the pasture, just standing around there looking bored. But they're hanging out with cliques. They have very strong social groups that they interact with.
Except for Ferdinand. He had his flowers.
Oh.
What else you got, Blair?
Ferdinand. I have fish with low self-esteem. So Northwestern University led an international collaboration looking at zebrafish's brains and eyes and where fish look when they swim. Where do you think fish look when they're swimming?
I would have thought
think about a fish eyeball.
Right. Out to the sides. Up, out to the sides. Predators that are going to be, where are the predators coming from? That's what I want to know.
Great question. Well, it turns out this study tells us that fish spend a lot of time looking at the ground. down at the bottom of
you don't want to
river.
trip.
Yeah.
Oh.
It kind of, yes. So let me tell you how they did the study first, and I'm going to tell you what they think is actually happening here. So they took zebrafish and they created a model with a few different methods here. So they visited 7 sites across India to gather video data of shallow rivers where the zebrafish are naturally. They encased a 360-degree camera inside waterproof diving case, attached it to a remotely controlled robotic arm. They dunked the camera, right? Then they used the robotic arm to move it around under the water. They were able to model hypothetical scenarios where a simulated fish moved arbitrarily through a realistic environment. Great. So then, in the lab, they had zebrafish where they tracked the zebrafish's motions inside a ball of LEDs. They were able to change what the zebrafish saw at different spaces in this kind of sphere they were inside, so that they could move it across and watch the fish's responses to stimuli in different areas. So they could see where they were focusing the most. When patterns appeared on the bottom, the fish swam along with the moving patterns as opposed to other areas on the sphere. So this is evidence that the fish were looking down at their visual cues. And then, so for example, if you played a video with moving stripes, they'd move along with the stripes. And they'd kind of swim faster and faster, wagging their tails faster and faster, more to try to keep up with the moving stripes. They then abstracted the data from the videos, combined it with the data from the lab experiments, and they combined that with data from how motion signals get encoded in fish brains. They fed the data sets into 2 pre-existing algorithms used for studying optic flow, which is the movement of the world across the eyes or camera lenses. And they found that in both scenarios, in the wild and in the lab, zebrafish were looking down when swimming forward. The reason they think that they're doing this, because it doesn't make sense.
Camouflage.
You want to look up for predators, you want to look around. Are you looking down for camouflage? So what they actually think is happening is the same thing that happens when, or has this ever happened to you, where you are in a parking spot and there's a car on either side of you? You're like kind of not paying attention. You're sitting there. You haven't put your car into reverse yet. But the car next to you starts backing out and you go, ah! You think you're moving forward. They think that's exactly what this is about, is that there's all the stuff moving in the riverbed. There's pebbles, there's other fish, there's particulate in the water, there's light dancing in the water, there's movement of gravel and all the other stuff going on around them. Yes, and so they think that this is essentially that they are trying to keep reference in a space so that they don't get swept away with the water, and so that they know where they are in relation to the environment. They're saying the visual cue from the other stuff around them is so strong that it could override all the other senses telling them that they're not moving. That's what's happening to us when we're in our car and that other car starts to back up. We know we're not moving. We can feel through our vestibular system that we're not moving, but our brain tricks us into thinking that we might be moving in that moment. And so this misleading motion could come from cues above them, to the side of them, and so the most reliable signals are at the bottom of the river.
And so now we're going to be using these zebrafish as a model for car sickness.
Interesting. Interesting. What they're actually going to do is, you can guess, use them as a model for, of course, robots. So they want to make a fish-inspired robot. And if they were just looking at the anatomy, they would have eyes pointing sideways. So based on this study, they know actually to have the majority of the eye time spent looking downward so that they can balance all the other tasks with stabilizing in a liquid environment.
So fascinating idea, the stabilization in a liquid environment. I mean, our atmosphere is a fluid, so we're in a fluid, but we're tacked to the ground because of our legs and gravity and the way that we move through space and time. The fish are completely different, and I have never considered this aspect of their physiology, their biology, this evolutionary force on the way that they interact. I mean, it's very similar to, I would imagine, birds. So I wonder if there is some similarity in some of their sensory systems
that's
to
interesting. Yeah.
flying animals. So if, it's just a thicker fluid environment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
fascinating.
And I think that this is a good reminder of what you see is not really what's happening. Like if you look at a fish eye, it looks like they're perpetually looking sideways, like we were saying, but their eyes don't work that way. They can actually adjust focus to different directions, even though their eye is immovable. So it's one of those things where we understand our eye works. We see their eyes. We kind of project that same functionality onto their eyes, but that's not how their eyes work.
How can we use this? I'm serious. How can we use this to fight car sickness, motion sickness, and be better space travelers?
Yeah,
that's what we need to know.
That would be great, especially if we gotta hightail it to Mars later.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I actually had to experience something like this this morning.
Oh yeah,
I
just moments ago,
going to Mars.
Yeah, a couple hours ago, looking out the window, saw a formation of lights in the sky, racing at a very quick pace, all in uniform. I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then I realized that it was a cloud that was illuminated by the moon, which is almost a full moon, if not a full moon, that was moving towards a bunch of stars. But because it like for some reason had triggered as the fixed object, as the ground in my mind for that moment, I got as far as my internal dialogue going, what the? Oh, I see what's happening. But it had this really weird look or feel that all these lights that were stars were racing towards something. But they were, of course, motionless, and the illuminated cloud was moving towards them. But yeah, I did. When I first saw the images you were showing, it looked like they were trying to track the shadow. So it looked like an effort to stay camouflaged by having the darker ground below them, because that would better match them, and then so they'd be hidden from being eaten above.
Right.
But if you really put yourself in the mind of a fish, there's a lot going on that could be distracting.
Yep. Put yourself in the mind of a fish.
Yeah.
Do you have any more?
Real quick, I was going to talk about these octopuses.
Okay. Talk about the octopuses.
This is late breaking news. I have not reviewed this story, so here we go. But this is all about octopuses throwing objects at each other, so including, I think, sometimes fish. So there is that. But octopuses are generally very, the majority of them are solitary. We know about some that kind of hang out in groups, but generally speaking, they are solitary. And in a 2015 study, there was more than 21 hours of video recorded off the coast of New South Wales, where they captured the behavior of about 10 octopuses throwing, propelling, projecting objects that had been gathered. And so they kind of wanted to look into this octopus throwing behavior. Both males and females did it. The majority of them were females. 2 individuals accounted for 66% of throwing. So also, I'll recognize this is kind of a smaller sample size, so this could just be a isolated incident. I don't think it is, but it could be. Out of 102 throws, 32% were related to octopuses cleaning out their dens. They're just saying, I don't want this stuff in here. Ugh. 8% occurred after eating, probably, I'm done, like kind of Thor, like, psh, another. And then the majority of what was thrown was shells. 53% of recorded throws occurred within 2 minutes of one octopus interacting with another. That could be fighting, mating, or grappling. And so that does seem like they were throwing stuff at each other.
Get out of here!
Yeah.
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Or the shell.
No. 33% of these throws involved material hitting another octopus. So 20% of the time their aim was not good, is what it sounds like to me. But it's hard to throw things underwater. It seems to researchers like it is deliberate. Some of the evidence for that includes that they found octopuses using an unusual combination of legs to hold the material and throw it. So this doesn't seem like another behavior that just kind of ended up in a lob. And that they were turning darker right before they did it, which usually means that they're feeling aggressive. So yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. They're not sure why they're doing it. And
many reasons.
No, yeah, I mean, it could be lots of reasons. There wasn't really any cases of return fire, so most of the time one octopus would throw something and all right, I'm leaving. And so yeah, I don't know. I think octopuses are just emotive. I think this is something that the more we learn about them in captivity too, like they spray people, they spray things, they're cranky. They can be cranky. They're so smart. I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like sometimes emotional complexity follows intelligence. And if it is a normal behavior for an animal of any type to throw something when it's mad. I feel like lots of animals do that. They'll like drop things or throw things. It's just like, it's a natural behavior. If you're holding something and you're mad, you're going to toss it. And so if that's all this is something kind of got their ire up and they had a projectile nearby, why not? Why not throw it?
Use what you have in your environment to your advantage, especially if you're trying to maintain a territory, if it's mating season. Like you said, it was more females than males. I imagine females are more likely to maintain territories because of their the eggs that they lay.
Yeah. I have all the sperm packets I need. Go away. Keep your hexacotylis away from me.
They do look really spooky when they turn all dark like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking
angry. So,
playing on the...
note to self: angry octopus has changed color to be darker.
It goes all
They may throw things at you.
Yes, they may throw things at you, or maybe they're just cleaning up, and you just happen to be in the way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I want to say that to somebody next time I'm cleaning. You're just in my way.
I didn't throw anything at you on purpose, Brian. No.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Sadie.
I'm just cleaning.
That's all. I'm not cleaning, but this is This Week in Science. Yes, it is This Week in Science. Justin, what you got?
I got an update on Ötzi the Iceman. The
still frozen.
Beloved. No longer. He's in a museum in Italy somewhere.
Oh, right.
Okay. Under maybe in non-oxygenated little thing. Anyways,
is he a docent? Is he leading tours?
Yeah,
that's right.
But he's old, right? This is a 5,300-year-old corpse that thawed out of the ice in pretty decent condition, good enough so that they could do an autopsy and find out how he died. So he thaws out of the ice in 1991, becomes one of the world's favorite archaeological finds. Everything about his well-preserved flesh and items are immensely informative. He's got a bunch of tattoos. Those are interesting. The snowshoes he was wearing were constructed with bearskin soles, deer hide on top, a netting made out of tree bark to keep them from falling through the snow. He had grass wrapped around his feet that functioned like socks for warmth. He had an axe of copper before the Copper Age was thought to have begun.
Huh.
He had a fungus-based fire kit where this fungus is turned into a powder, and then you'd flint it, and it would ignite. It would ignite quickly. It was a good fire starter. And you could, once it was lit, smush it down with like a hammer, and it would smolder, and it would stay smoldering long enough for you to carry it in a pouch from like one campsite to the next. So you didn't even have to flint everything. You could just keep that little bit of algae, or not algae, a fungus, smoldering, and could restart a new fire. He had an undigested meal in his belly, giving us a glimpse into diet. And of course, the unlucky fate of having been murdered, as a stone arrowhead was found lodged beneath his shoulder blade. Yet, Such a lucky chain of events had to happen for him to be preserved in the first place. So first the body had to be freeze-dried in the cool of fall or winter on this mountain in the Alps, then encased in ice beneath a glacier while being protected from the glacier's movements by having fallen into a gully where he remained frozen and only was undisturbed for thousands of years, only coming to light because of global warming, climate change melting the glacial ice in which he had been frozen. Such a sequence of events means that, of course, Ötzi is a sort of archaeological unicorn, one that is unlikely to be repeated.
Except
a small team of researchers affiliated with institutions in Norway, Sweden, and Austria have found evidence that suggests there's some flaws in the unicorn story about how Ötzi remained preserved for so long, and they have published in the journal The Holocene. In fact, the researchers disagree with almost every part of the original story that I have just told you. The cause of death remains the same. Still died of that arrow wound. But they suggest that Ötzi's belly demonstrates that he died in spring, not in the fall or winter. Study of the landscape shows that the remains had not been covered by a glacier, which suggests that Ötzi likely melted out of the ice many times. There's also evidence that Ötzi had been immersed in water several times, so that fit. And the researchers also found evidence suggesting Ötzi had not died where he was found in the gully, but instead had been transported down the mountain by natural environmental processes and come to rest in the gully. So, researchers conclude that since their evidence showed Ötzi's remains had survived for so long, under very common conditions, it is likely that there are others like him in the Alps to be found as conditions in the area continue to grow warmer. So, talked about a little bit ice patch archaeology, where we're finding artifacts and things melting out of the ice, but there's kind of a tight window to discover them. The thinking is that the natural degradation will quickly destroy many artifacts if they're not found quickly, as global warming allows this look into the past. But if Ötzi's any indication, you can melt and maybe refreeze a few times before you've done too severe a damage. Yeah, also
people don't like eating freezer burned meat. You know, it's been frozen and melted and refrozen. Yeah, but being it, that's different entirely.
Yeah. And then my last story,
just gonna make sure there's no plant-based aliens that are in the ice that are gonna melt.
Oh no, too bad.
Take over your entire Arctic outpost.
Oh, that's actually
too bad. That's already happening. Yeah. Sorry, Blair.
Shucks.
My last story of the night: the origins of the alphabet we use today, commonly, is about 3,800 years old. Mm-hmm. It was created by a segment of an ancient Egyptian population that found hieroglyphs too dang complicated and cumbersome to have any meaningful conversations with, so they had built this shorthand version for texting each other on clay tablets and etching their names onto the walls of pyramids. The new format caught on really quickly and soon spread across the region, thanks quite a bit to the Phoenicians, who were credited with standardizing the new text symbols. They get to pick the font, I guess. And some say they were also very good grammar coaches as well. They helped autocorrect your texting. Now, one of the oldest texts of that format has been discovered. An indigenous Israeli Canaanite inscription dating to about 3,700 years ago, which is a mere 100 years into the creation of these ancient fonts, this ancient alphabet. A comb made of ivory from an elephant's tusk, likely owned by a wealthy person as there were no local elephants, so also likely an imported luxury object. This was discovered by a team from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Southern Adventist University in the United States. It is published in Jerusalem Journal of Archaeology. The comb bears an inscription. There are 17 Canaanite letters archaic in form from the very first stages of the invention of the alphabet script. They form 7 words in ancient Canaanite. The first sentence ever found in the Canaanite language in Israel. What message of wisdom, what words from the ancient past were immortalized here for future generations to discover? It reads like an enchantment or perhaps an advertisement, almost an instruction. It reads, "May this tusk root out the lice of the hair and the beard."
May it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, that could be an enchantment, empowering the comb to remove lice. Or maybe it's an advertisement, like telling people, hey, this is what this is for. And then by that sort of an instruction, telling you how to use it. It's also kind of fun is one side of the comb had 6 thick teeth for untangling knots in hair, while the other side had 14 very fine teeth that was used to remove lice and their eggs. Which, if this you've had unfortunately had to deal with this is exactly how they make the current day 2-sided lice combs that you can go buy in the store today.
Haven't changed. Yeah.
Haven't changed. Lice combs haven't changed in 3,700 years, folks.
Just come out the nits, everyone.
They found the remains, the outer, chitin membrane of the nymph stage head louse was found on this comb. But it also shows that regardless of your prominence in society, regardless of your wealth, you could afford this language-inscribed, ivory imported luxury lice removal comb. You still needed a lice removal comb, even if you're like the richest.
That's what they always tell the kids when there's the lice outbreak in school. Is no. Getting lice. The lice attack clean heads. They like clean hair.
The
so
lice,
it's a compliment.
I've never gotten it.
The lice like any head they can get themselves onto. And yes, it doesn't matter who you are.
No.
But if your hair is there, the lice are going to attach. Now, I think it's just amazing that they've been able to figure out the writing on it, and that it was so very instructive. Not just no writing, but a shorthand. I don't know. It's like almost like shorthand, right? Instead of the hieroglyphs. It's like It's like going the opposite direction from where we are now with emojis.
It kind of is, right?
Right.
So what the way you could sort of picture this first language, because all of the symbols of the first alphabet largely are derived from hieroglyphs. So much so that, it is a language of emojis.
Right.
Where if you put certain emojis together, it means this. If you put this other grouping of emojis together, it means that. And so, our transition back into emojis, it's the sort of basis of language we've been using for such a long time.
Doesn't matter. Lice have been with us the whole time.
If you want, go look up the ancient Canaanite and actually really look up the ancient Phoenician alphabet. And you'll see how it leads into the Greek and the Roman. And you'll also see how it connects to the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Because all of the symbols, all those letters that we take for granted as just being a symbol that stands for something that can make a sound, they all started out as images. As emojis themselves. Like what was it? The letter J was an outstretched arm. It used to be on its side. Like they moved a lot of these things around. The W was a palm hand, which might have turned into the E. Like some of them got changed in use over time. The letter A was a head of an ox.
Mm-hmm.
So which again, that one I think got turned upside down at some point. If you flip the
history of it is fascinating.
Capital A upside down, you can see it's very. Oh, okay. Now I can see how this still looks exactly like an ox's head. Like if you were gonna make a crude symbol of an ox's head, it's perfect.
With the horns, a capital A.
Yeah.
The lowercase a, not
it still has kept its ancient form. Yeah.
Old combs, new technologies. Lice is still here. Now, I don't need to talk about going to the club.
Day clubbing. We're going day clubbing.
But if you're not going clubbing, you should be getting some sleep. That is, there's so many studies. Just go to sleep, everybody. Published in a journal that is appropriately called Sleep. Researchers have published their study, Sleep Restriction Reduces Positive Social Emotions and Desire to Connect with Others. So, in their study of 50-ish healthy emerging adults. Now, I love the idea of an emerging adult, as if it's emerging from there's a child
primordial teenness.
There was a chrysalis at some point. I don't think so. But anyway,
teenage cocoon.
These kids aged 18 to 28 years old were randomly assigned to 1 night of sleep restriction with only 4 hours in bed, or allowing 8 hours of sleep, regular, typical sleep. And then they asked the participants to report on their desire to pursue social connections. And then they had to complete a task in which they had to reflect on their gratitude for something that someone had done for them recently. And they found that the people who reported their desire to pursue these reflections, like their self-reported motivation was low. They're like, I don't want to go talk to anybody because I'm tired, right? They're like, I don't need to talk. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Totally
and
agree.
Then in the reflection, the researchers looked at the words that were used and coded the different words, looking for words and how they were focused, whether they're self-focused or whether the words were focused on other people. And they found that there were fewer socially oriented words used by the individuals who had slept less. So people were much less likely to reflect on their gratitude in a way that was actually reflective of gratitude to others. But in this whole situation, it just goes to show once again that if you are feeling like you're unusually unsociable, that you don't want to hang out with people, that you're, something is abnormal in the way that you want to interact with others, that perhaps getting some sleep will help with that. I know, HNEK, I never get enough sleep. What am I supposed to do? Right. And so then this becomes the question of, there's too much sleep leading to demotivation, not enough sleep leading to demotivation. And so there's that happy middle, right? Mm-hmm. Moderation, which unfortunately is very hard to come by these days. Sleep as you can. Sleep them if you've got them. I don't know if that works anymore. It's good for you. And I think we've done all of our stories. Have we made it to the end of the show?
I think we have. I think it's time for a nap.
It might be time for a nap.
900 episodes. I think we deserve a nap.
We did 900 episodes tonight. That's very long. Once again, cheers to all. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your curiosity. Thank you for your friendship. So wonderful to have you here. Thank you for listening, everyone. So I think it is time. It's time. Is it time? It's time for me to say thank you. I just said thank you, but I'm going to say thank you again. Fada, thank you. You've been with us for so many episodes, helping, doing social media and show descriptions since 2015, somewhere around there. It's been so long. thank you so much for all of your help. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. You've been recording the show for quite a while. If you've been saving all these episodes, your drives are definitely full.
Oh, gosh.
Get a dust broom in there. I also have to say thank you to Gord, Aranlor, Goldizator, others who are in the chat room constantly and are helping to keep the chat rooms very nice, happy places to be. Thank you for all your time in the chat rooms and moderating in there. And our patrons, and thank you to our Discord server. Everyone, Noodles, who else is in there? Kevin Unique. I know, Kevin, you're in other places. Schnago. Who else is in there? We've got Hot Rod, and there's a bunch of other people over in the Identity 4 says he has a 16 terabyte NAS drive, so he's got plenty of room to record more TWIS episodes. Gaurav Sharma, HNEK, all of you who are here tonight in our YouTube chat room, our Twitch chat room, our Facebook chat room, thank you for being here and for chatting and being a part of the conversation. So it's just wonderful to have your engagement and your presence. And of course, I do have to say thank you to Rachel for bearing with us. And yes, you're going to have to cut out a few bits tonight from the edit. And additionally, of course, to our Patreon sponsors. For those of you who support the show financially, we really can't do this without you. 900 episodes is a huge deal, and you've made such a huge difference. Teresa Smith, James Schaefer, Richard Badge, Kent Northcote, Rick Loveman, Pierre Velazarb, Ralphie Figueroa, John Ratnaswamy, Carl Kornfeld, Karen Tazi, Woody MS, Chris Wozniak, Dave Bunn, Vegard Shefstad, Hal Snyder, Jonathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, John Lee, Ali Coffin, Gaurav Sharma, Regan, Derek Schmidt, Don Mundus, Stephen Albaran, Daryl Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fred S104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Brian Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Matt Bass, vote Beto for Texas. I wonder if it's going to change.
I think it needs to change.
Yeah. John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, a.k.a. Zima, Ken Hayes, Christopher Rappin, Dana Pearson, Richard, Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, Flying Out, Christopher Dyer, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul, Rick, Ramus, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric App, E.O., Adam Mishkan, Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBell, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Disney, David Simmerly, Patrick Pecoraro, Tony Steele, and Jason Roberts. Thank you. Thank you for all of your support.
And if you keep it going. We're less than 2 years away from episode 1000.
Yeah, so we're gonna need some Patreon support so that we can have a crazy event.
I think if we get to episode 1000, there needs to be something big. There will be.
Yeah, we have to do it live.
There needs to be live in person. It needs to be a destination. We're gonna have multiple speakers. It'll have to be a festival-y kind of thing. I think it'll have to be a whole day. Yes, it'll have to be big. Yeah. Do you like the idea of that?
Yeah, it's less than 2 years away. It's close. We gotta start planning now.
We have to start planning it now. That's right, Gaurav. Someone do a rough calculation. Let's figure out when it's going to be.
2 years and 4 weeks-ish.
So, October.
That's wrong. That's less than 2 years.
10th?
2 years minus 4 weeks. There we go.
Yeah, so October 10th.
October. Yeah, October-ish in 2 years. Okay.
Plus or minus, yeah.
We'll just, it'll be your wedding anniversary getaway weekend, Blair. Multitasking. It's what we do now. But if anyone is interested in the meantime in helping us out on Patreon, head over to twist.org and click on that Patreon link. Tomorrow, I am interviewing Professor Matthew Cobb about his book, As Gods. And it's about genetic engineering and the ethical choices that we're making. And it is at 11 a.m. Pacific time, Thursday, November 10th, 2022. But next Wednesday, we'll be back.
Yeah, next Wednesday. Well, actually, we're going to have 2 broadcasts next week. We have one Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. And we have a second broadcast that will also be live Thursday, 5 a.m. Central European time.
He means it's the exact same time.
Yeah.
Just one broadcast.
Broadcasting live, of course, from our YouTube, Facebook channels, from twist.org/live.
hey, do you want to listen to us as a podcast? Maybe you can put on some low bass in the background while you listen and dance to all the science. Anyway, just search for This Week in Science where podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well. Take their phones, sign up for them.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes, links to stories will be available on our website, www.twis.org, and you can also sign up for a newsletter.
You can also contact us directly. Email Kiki at Kirsten@thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistmanina@gmail.com, or me, Blair, at blairbaz@twis.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, and also explain why it's called the Squid Galaxy, or I'm going to delete your email immediately. No, I won't.
Ouch.
You can also hit us up on the Twitter for now, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at JacksonFly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love
your feedback.
If there's to cover or address a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.